Welcome to the EQ Fit podcast. Our mission is to equip people to prosper in every aspect of their life. Whether you're at home or in the workplace, we explore practical ways of improving success, satisfaction, finding balance, and building enjoyable and beneficial relationships. Thank you for joining us. As we continue our focus on leadership challenges, closing out one year, moving into a new year, this is always the time that we kind of step back and say, okay, what were the wins this year? What were the losses? What did we do that we'd like to do again next year? What did we do we don't want to do again next year? And if we could go back and change things, what would it be? Well, the challenge we're going to talk about today is probably the most impactful as it relates to overall dollars and resources and productivity. And it really comes down to, how do you attract and retain top talent? I know there's a million books about this. I'm sure just as many podcast episodes and articles and all of that. Everybody's got their own ideas. Let me share some secrets with you. These are just some lessons that I've learned in 40 plus years of doing this. When you get into competitive job markets like they are today, attracting and retaining top talent is a real challenge for everybody. I'm pulling from that 40 plus years of experience to kind of share with you a concept that I've developed and refined. It's called right fit hiring. And right fit is more than just, does the candidate have the skills for the job? That's just at the very lowest level. There's so much more. Are they a true fit for the position? Are they a fit for the team? Are they a fit for the leader or manager? That's just as important, because people are different, and different leaders, managers may want a different type of candidate because of who they are, what their personality is. Are they the right fit for the organization? Are they the right fit for the culture? And I'm going to add another dimension to this. Are they the right fit as far as growth and development? Because that's something most people don't think about when they're thinking of filling a specific position. There are people who look at the strategic hiring process and focus in on that. That's a part of what I like to talk about, because I've seen firsthand the profound impact of making informed strategic hiring decisions. And this journey has led to the development of something that I'm actually very proud of. And not proud from a prideful point of view, but something that I've seen work over and over and over again and be successful. And I call it the hindsight in advance assessment process. Sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? How do you get hindsight in advance? You know, my dad always said, psychologist, assessment expert, he always said the good assessments would be telling you what the person is like as if you worked with them for a year, but you get that before you ever hire them. And that's what this hindsight in advance assessment process is all about. Now, I know there's a lot of companies out there that do their own assessments, and there are other organizations that do recruiting that say they do their assessments. Let me make this crystal clear what I'm talking about. I am a certified assessment professional, certified in dozens of different assessments, and I am always looking to put together the exact right combination to measure what we really want to see in candidates so that they have the highest predictability of success and the highest potential for success. That's not easy. And it starts with a good targeting process. If you know what you're looking for, if you're sure about the needs of the position and are strategic about it, I can create a package of assessments that will measure that in candidates so that you can know their chance of success and their capacity for long-term success. That is game changing. And I know a lot of people don't get this deep into it, or, yeah, we give them a personality assessment. It's all good. No, not really. It's not really all good when you just do a personality assessment. Now, there's a lot of them out there, and I use them as a part of what I do. But think of a multi-dimensional assessment process. Would you buy a car by just looking at one thing? The color, the gas mileage, the horsepower? No, you never buy something of importance or invest in something of importance by just looking at one aspect. You want to see the entire picture. And that's what this process does. Now, please understand, this is not a sales pitch to sell you my assessment packages, although I would love to work with people on that because I know how impactful and successful it is. I mean, we've been able to raise the successful hiring rate into the mid 90% range. That is double the national average. And we do it because we take our time, we make sure we understand, and then we use the right tools. And we have a lot of tools to help us find the right candidates. So yes, I do searches for a lot of organizations, and I've got a partner I'm working with now that is fantastic at identifying right fit candidates. His name is Monty. And, I think Monty is gifted in that ability. But why is all this important? Why am I talking about this? Because I want you to know, whatever your experience has been in the past, you can have success in hiring. You don't have to continue down the revolving door pathway. You don't have to get anxious and stressed out every time you have to make a new hire. You can hire successfully the first time, 90% of the time or better, if you use a well-defined, well-proven process like the one that I use, the one that I've developed over the last 40 years. So let's take it back a step and talk about why is it important to attract and retain top talent. Well, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? But the first thing, I want you to think a little bit outside the box here. It isn't just about filling the position. It isn't just about getting somebody in there who can do the job and add some value. There's a lot more to it. If we're thinking strategic hiring and how do we overcome this challenge of getting right fit candidates, think of innovation and growth. We want to hire candidates and retain talent that helps us to innovate and grow, not just as a team or an organization, but individually as well. We want continuity throughout our organization, throughout our teams. The highest retention rates happen when there's a continuity and a flow to teams and to organizations. When you lose a skilled employee, you lose a lot. There's institutional knowledge, there's value, there's skill sets that have been developed. You lose a lot when you lose a skilled employee. The other thing here is employer branding, and I cannot stress this enough. If people are talking about how great a place your workplace is to work, then you have a wonderful employer brand. And that's what you want. Because it isn't enough to put stuff on a brochure or on a website and say, oh, we're great, you're going to love working for us and with us. But bottom line, people talk. And there's all these things online now where people can give reviews of the different places they've worked. So, We have to be thoughtful when we're hiring about fit in a multidimensional sense. And by doing that, we can overcome this hiring challenge. We can overcome this, we can move in the right direction, and we can consistently get better hires and more long term hires. Some of the most recent data I'll share with you. Number one, the average hire in the United States right now lasts about 2 years, 4 months. And if it's a Gen Z or that younger generation, it might be 1 year, 9 months. It's really hard to get a good return on investment in a new employee in 1 year and 9 months or 2 years, even 2 years and 4 months. So I know that through this process, by making sure that we're identifying the specific needs and then finding a multidimensional right fit, that we are going to at least double that tenure that somebody comes on board. Are they going to stay forever? That's not really our world today, right? I mean, things change, but if you could go from 2 years and 4 months to 5 years, 5 years is a good amount of time, and there's a lot of really good value and return on investment there. And the longer that somebody is in an organization and is developed within that organization, the better chance you have of them staying even longer. So we know that there's a lot of competition out there, and I see this all the time. I see people who, I gotta hire. No, we just need to fill the position. I understand the pressure. I understand the need to do that. But please don't just allow that to be the only driving force, because 6 months down the road, you're going to find out, oh, great, this didn't work out. Now, not only do I need to do something about this person we hired, but I got to start the process again. There's a better way to live, and it isn't that. Hiring and firing are some of the most stressful times for any leader or manager and for any organization. So the better we can get at this, the more effective the organization and the team is going to be. And the less wear and tear on managers and leaders as well, right? So let's talk about, if we can do that, if we can hire and retain top talent, what is the impact on, say, leaders? Well, as leaders, it's our job to create an appealing workplace. And it's our responsibility. We can't just say we're going to abdicate that and, hey, you team members figure it out. That's not leadership. That's abdication, which is probably the opposite of leadership, to be honest about it. What about teams? Well, stability and expertise are essential for high-performing teams. So for leaders, it's about getting that top talent in there and developing them and retaining them, because it's going to make your team and your success much greater. But for teams, it's going to give that sense of security and stability. It's going to give that sense of flow and collaboration that you really want for a highly effective team. And for the organization, all of this is going to positively impact the organization, and the HR structures, all of that need to align with this concept of hiring and retaining top talent. I see a lot of companies that can hire top talent, but they can't keep them because they're not doing the things that need to be done. Well, let's talk about that. Where does that come from? Have you ever heard the phrase, people don't leave companies, they leave managers? There is so much truth in that. And so what can we do first to create this magnet that draws in top talent, but then also is able to retain it? And it starts with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has emerged as a critical factor in attracting, developing, and retaining top talent. Notice it's not just to attract them and to retain them from a leadership perspective or a manager or supervisor perspective. It is also developing their emotional intelligence so they become more agile, more flexible, more resilient. So all of this comes into play on the hiring process in that highly emotionally intelligent leaders and hiring managers have a certain way about them, making people comfortable, showing empathy, listening well to people, engaging people at very high levels, communicating effectively. There are so many skills. Basically, any skill that you think could be called a soft skill has its foundation in emotional intelligence. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's work ethic. I don't care if it's the way you show up professionally every day. All of those have its foundation in emotional intelligence skills and competencies. So the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, both your own and those of other people, has far-reaching implications for hiring, for developing people, for developing leaders, and for the organizational culture. So let's specifically talk about emotional intelligence in hiring. Candidates with higher emotional intelligence are more likely to build stronger relationships with colleagues and clients. Well, there's a plus, right? Number two, demonstrate resilience and adaptability in dynamic environments. And that also means in challenging environments. There's another good thing, right? And here's another one. Exhibit self-awareness and self-regulation, which are crucial for long-term success. I don't know how to stress enough how important emotional intelligence is for organizations at all levels, in all people, with all different kinds of responsibilities, whether you're hiring, whether you're developing, whether you're operating, executing, whatever it is you're doing it with higher levels, doing it with higher levels of emotional intelligence is simply going to make you more successful because you're not dealing with machines, you're dealing with people, and people are emotional beings. So one of the things I do all the time is integrate emotional intelligence assessments into the hiring process, which ensures that organizations are selecting individuals who align not only with the technical requirements, but also with the interpersonal and cultural needs of the role. That cultural fit is so important. The major reason that people leave is the culture. It isn't money, it isn't other things. It's toxicity, it's lack of growth, it's lack of innovation, it's lack of being challenged, it's basically the culture. And what we know is that companies get the culture they tolerate. So if you're tolerating certain things, don't expect to hire people and retain people that are going to be at a much higher level because they're going to see this culture and go, hey, this isn't for me. And I see this, unfortunately, a lot where we find the right people, bring them in, and then over time, the culture erodes. It deteriorates. There's no real work in enhancing the culture. And the best talent is going to see that the soonest and they're going to leave the earliest. That's just the way it goes. So emotional intelligence when we're hiring is critical. What about for leadership and for development? There's another area to think about. Well, to motivate and inspire teams, you need higher levels of emotional intelligence. Leadership is not doing it yourself. Leadership is getting things done through other people. And the way we do that is through empathy and through effective communication. We listen well, we care about people, and we communicate well with them. We set good expectations. And that motivates people. If you're leaving a lot for people to try and figure out on their own, and I'm not saying you have to micromanage, I'm not saying you have to have everything written down, but if people don't have a clear sense of expectations for themselves and what they're supposed to accomplish, you're not doing your job as a leader. You are leaving them to flounder around, and that's going to create the culture you don't want. The other thing you can do with higher levels of emotional intelligence as a leader, you can navigate conflict constructively. That's hard to say. You can also foster collaboration and trust. There's a big difference between trust and loyalty. And I know a lot of leaders and managers say, I want loyalty in my people. Well, I can appreciate that. But loyalty without trust is political. And it never seems to work out very well. Loyalty out of trust is entirely different. It is healthy. It fosters good, trusting relationships. Trust is critical. And I will do a series in the future on trust. It is that important. And there are so many ways to build trust. I have several assessments that measure trust in candidates and in employees and in leaders. And I use those a lot because I want to know, especially for a leader, I have a Leadership 360 assessment I use that measures what they think of as their level of trust with people, but also what everybody else thinks about their level of trust. And they measure that in that assessment. That's important. There's another type of assessment that gives you insight that can really move things forward. It can drive employee engagement by recognizing and addressing individual needs. This is leveraging emotional intelligence to do that. So, leadership training programs that prioritize emotional intelligence development create leaders who excel in both people management and strategic decision making. And I can tell you that's true. I do quite a bit of training and coaching around emotional intelligence skills for leaders, and there is no question in my mind that those are two of the biggest benefits that come out of that. Better people management skills and better strategic decision making. You might ask, why that? Why better strategic decision making? Very simply because if you cannot navigate your own emotions or the emotions other people are having around you, if those are derailing you, you cannot access your higher cognitive functions. Strategic thinking, adaptive thinking, logical thinking, numerical reasoning, abstract thinking. I mean, I could go on and on with all of the different higher level thinking skills that are much more difficult to access when you're triggered by strong emotions and when you're not dealing with them well, when you're cycling in those non-productive emotional cycles. So, how does emotional intelligence impact organizational culture? Well, as I said, organizations get the culture they tolerate. So, number one, if you can have a higher emotional intelligence quotient in your organization and throughout your people, employees feel better heard, more valued. It leads to greater collaboration. It makes people more resilient. And here is the holy grail, so to speak. I mean, every climate survey I've ever seen promotes engagement What is my engagement level in my organization? How many employees, percentage wise, are truly engaged? Everybody looks at that, but I guarantee you, I have yet to see, except for the climate survey that I use that is based in emotional intelligence, I have yet to see a climate survey that gives a measure of employee engagement that actually gives you a step by step structured pathway to improve it and make it happen. They give suggestions and ideas and all of that. I'm talking about real science that has a real result. So there are so many ways to leverage emotional intelligence, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in hiring, or whether it's in organizational culture. Okay, but what do we do with this? I always like to close out the episodes with very practical approaches. So let's go back to the original challenge, which is how do we attract and retain top talent? And I'm just going to give some very practical things that I have found to be important. Number one, offer competitive packages. Okay, I know everybody's listening to this going, no kidding, right? Like, really? Seriously? I can't tell you how important that is, but it isn't just offering a competitive package. It's creating that competitive package. It's communicating that competitive package, because a competitive package may not just be about compensation or benefits. There are so many other aspects involved. How much autonomy is someone going to have in their role? How much are they going to be able to innovate and make decisions on their own? How much training and development are they going to get? Are you going to invest in their future? What are the people they're going to be working with? What kind of a team is it? There are so many different aspects. Is it a large organization that's very system focused? Is it a small organization that has a lot of latitude and a lot of flexibility, and they're growing and figuring things out as they go? All of this should be a part of your competitive package, because if we're serious about multidimensional right fit candidates, meaning that they are the right fit in multi dimensions, then it's got to include a lot of different things. And it has to include the environment that's really going to spur their creativity and their energy and their motivation. Also, and here's one I've already touched on, foster career advancement. Provide clear pathways for progression, training, development, coaching, whatever it is. Provide those things for employees. That can really attract and retain people, because they're not going to get that everywhere. And a big one here that may seem too big to tackle, but it's one we'll talk about in its own episode in the future, and that is enhance the workplace culture. And I know today with a lot of remote workers and hybrid teams, and it's just a different world, and it's kind of hard in some ways to create this better culture, but it can still be done, and it has to be done. If you want to have the employer brand that you really desire, this is a big part of it. Are you going to be one of those best workplaces to work? Are you going to be seen, and are people going to talk about how much they enjoy working at your workplace? So, what can we do specifically? What practices can we put in place? Well, first, employee feedback mechanisms. There's got to be a way for employees to provide feedback. It may be in a structured Leadership 360 assessment. It may be in a climate survey, or it may be a suggestion box. There are so many different ways surveys and different things you can use to get that kind of information. Develop mentorship programs. I think coaching and mentoring is a huge benefit that most organizations are missing out on. If you had a true coaching and mentoring program, I think it would go a very long way. No, I don't think. I know it will. Because number one, it's part of what I do every day, and I enjoy it and I love it, and people grow from it and they get better and their businesses grow and become more successful. And that can be embedded within the organization. And then also, and this is so important, and don't look at this as, oh, great, we got to do that quarterly celebration thing again. You do need to recognize achievements. You need to celebrate the small wins, and you need to celebrate the big wins. Celebrate successes publicly. That fosters a sense of accomplishment. Now, I want to close this out and go back to a minute that I had earlier, talking about this hindsight in advance approach. And whether you use me or whether you use somebody else that's truly a multidimensional certified assessment professional. What do I mean by that? They can provide emotional intelligence assessments, personality assessments, cognitive assessments. They can provide habit-based assessments. That's so critical. If you can't measure productive and counterproductive habits on the same scale, then you're missing a ton when it comes to really being able to identify top talent and develop talent within your organization. And there are many other types, like specific types, like leadership skills assessments, sales skills assessments. It doesn't cost that much in time or money to invest in really, truly getting the insight you need to make your very best decisions. And that's what I want people to know, is that this process that has been developed and refined for over 40 years, that includes the hindsight in advance assessment packages, it includes a very structured process to ensure right fit hiring, what I call FIT, Finding Ideal Talent, FIT. That can be done in your organization. You can do it yourself. You can do it with some help from somebody else. I would love to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk about that. I mean, this is a passion of mine. If you hadn't figured that out yet, this is a passion of mine, because I know how much pain can come out of a bad hire. And when I say bad hire, I'm not blaming anybody. It just wasn't the right fit. So there is a better pathway. And I wanted to share some of that with you today, because this leadership challenge of hiring right fit candidates and then retaining them for the long term is probably one of the top 2 or 3 that can make all the difference in the world. Success versus failure. And I want to provide as much insight as I can on this, so you don't stress when you have to make the next hire. You assess. Don't stress, assess. Don't guess, assess. That's our motto. That's the way we approach things. It's been working for 40 years, and I hope it'll work for you. Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have any questions about this week's episode, or maybe a suggestion for future episodes you'd like us to explore, please contact us through our website at eqfit.org. For more information and inspiration, connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at EQFit.